Surveillance happens because it's cheap. The cost of actually capturing, storing, and processing data has dropped by factors of billions over the course of the past decades. And if we want those organizations to stop surveilling, the only thing that we see works historically is changing the price of surveillance. So if we can make it expensive to surveil again, they'll stop doing it. So in order to do that, we're looking at a number of things. A lot of them are technical solutions, but there are also some policy ones, which I'll cover first. So policy-wise, yes, oversight helps. Yes, transparency helps. But those both basically help because they're cost factors. However, what really makes a difference is if we can change the infrastructure that we're using to communicate. Now, on a personal level, that means looking at privacy-preserving technologies. Use OTR. If you can, use GPG. It's a huge pain right now, but that's changing. So one of the other things that you can do is support people who are working to make these tools easier. MailPal Team is a project that I'm personally involved in, but that I'm really excited with as far as seeing GPG actually become useful. CryptoCat is another great tool for making OTR even easier to use so that we can have secure IAM that whether or not it's untappable or whatever isn't the point. The point is that it makes surveillance much, much more expensive. And the idea is that we use these things all the time, every day, not just once in a while. HTTPS Everywhere, Privacy Badger are both great tools from the EFF that will install in your browser that make it your browser more secure, that make it harder to surveil you again. So anytime you install one of those tools, it's a tiny little drop in the bucket, but enough of those drops and we actually make a real difference.
Now, I think a lot of the people here today, we're working on the premise that we already know that privacy is important, but I think some people don't realise, I guess, why privacy is important and then what it feeds into. Can you explain a little bit about why privacy as I guess, a right is so important and then how that feeds into, I guess, other rights and other issues?
So privacy is actually really fundamental, and that's why in some places, even when it's not mentioned in constitutional documents, it's been sort of realized that it's a derived right, because you can't have, for instance, freedom of speech or freedom of assembly if that assembly can be surveilled, right? If everyone knows, oh, you're the person who cares about such and such controversial issue, then you don't actually have the right to speak freely or the right to assemble around that issue. So it's a core right for a lot of other things. It's also really important just as a psychological need, kind of prior to any legal construction of rights. We need to know that our time with our loved ones, those kinds of private moments, we need to know that those are actually private. And in a surveillance society, we don't have that knowledge anymore. And finally, where a lot of large corporations and some of the intelligence bodies are kind of taking the use of big data, they're moving it from an attack on privacy to an attack on free will, where they're looking at algorithmic-driven, large-scale sort of population manipulation, whether it's to get people to buy specific things or shop at some store or change, kind of societal beliefs to become, more controllable, more in line with national security policy. So this is actually really a very core issue around human agency.
And on that note, what's your opinion on Australia's proposed mandatory detention laws?
It's catastrophic. I mean, the things that I see coming out of Australian politics right now are not the work of a democracy. There is no actually functional opposition, and the security state is simply running rampant over basic democratic concepts and over the fundamental workings of society. It is unacceptable and it must be stopped.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.